What's up guys, we're back. It's the same day, as you can tell from the last video we just made about adjusting your wastegate to the right vacuum pressure. Check it out, we got an AEM boost gauge that is sitting in a 3D printed gauge pod, perfectly 52 millimeter, that sits perfectly in the vents of these cars. So the GLA45, CLA 2014 to, I believe they'll fit all the way to 2017. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. And we're going to install this and this together because they're both going to be going to the same vacuum line that I have built a little T for. So if you're installing one or the other, you won't need to do this in depth of an NPT to vacuum setup. But what I have here, if you want to run it, it's on Amazon. It's a single male 1/8 NPT to double female 1/8 NPT. And what's here is the macro line that's going to come off of the boost gauge, or the blow-off valve from Weistec. And this one is going to be barbed up to the boost gauge itself to run the sensor back into my car. So it looks a little funny. It's probably going to sit a little funny when it goes right here. But as you can see, there's plenty of room for it. It's not going to interfere with anything. That's approximately where it's going to sit. So that's what we're getting into today, boys. We're going to have a little bit more in-depth details in parts of the video where we can clip it and say, hey, skip to this part for this, skip to this part for this. But they're both going to be pretty straightforward when it comes to tapping into a vacuum line. You don't need electrical work for this, but we do need it for the boost gauge. So you can skip parts, you can zoom to parts, whatever you want to do, but check it out, we're going to get started. Alright, so first things first, when you're working on anything electrical or removing sensors like we're going to have to get to put this blow-off valve in, we're going to want to disconnect the battery and we're going to undo the ECU. So pull our little hood latch wire there and then remove our cover just like that. Put this aside for safekeeping and then we're going to just, disconnect our battery. So we'll take the positive off here and then we'll take the negative off as well, just because I like to be safe and take them both off. You could really just remove one and be fine, but I tend to not like to play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So see if we can't get this to stay back there, this to stay away from here as well. That's fine. You could even put your battery cover back on underneath it to make sure they don't go anywhere, but I trust that they're not going to go anweanywhere. I might throw a zip tie on it to keep it over here, but it's fine for now. And then we're going to start removing the ECU. So we'll have to push down on this, pull up there, and you'll see a little black slide comes out the back, which I did this recently, so it might not be this easy for you, but for me, not an issue at all. Same thing on the red side. Pop that up and off. So you keep those out of the way, as well as your other stuff. And this is going to get us so we can take apart the intake box and pull the entire thing out. So our next step is going to be to remove the little airbox cover on our intake here. It's going to be 4 T25 screws. The nice thing about these is they are captured, so you can loosen them up all the way, and you're not going to lose them. So you can just blast these out. I wouldn't recommend tightening them with a drill, but this just makes for easy life, So there's that. And then for your filter, whether you have a K&N or OEM, all you got to do is turn it this way, pop it off, pull it out. Simple as that. So now that we have the top off of this and the ECU connectors removed, we can unclip the back sides of this, pull it up. This is your computer system. Put this somewhere safe. Don't let any dirt in the pins. Just keep it safe, man. This is running your whole car, okay? You want to keep this safe. And once that's out, you can move this back a little bit to pry up your air scoop, if it'll let me take it out. It's being a real bitch. There we go. It's not that hard, but it's a little annoying because it's a tight fit. So once that's removed, we can put that with our other stuff to not worry about for now. And then we have to remove the clamps that are holding this airbox into position, as well as the sensor back here, which is just a little gray clip you want to push back and pull. And then there is also a connector over here that you want to disconnect. So for this, you'll just need a very tiny screwdriver. You'll take it on the clip towards the car, push down, simple as that, and then you could disconnect this right here. It's just like a little gator clamp to the side of the airbox, and move these out of the way for now. They're not going to be touched for a bit, and now we have access to removing the entire airbox once we take off this hose clamp from the accordion there. So before we get to that accordion there, we do have to worry about this whole stupid setup here. It's a bunch of vacuum lines. It's going to be 2 E10s that are underneath that bolt to this bracket. And they come loose. You don't want to lose these ones that are not captured. So one there, and then one right under here. Mine seemed like they were a little loose to begin with, so I'll have to make sure I tighten them up more before I put them back on. Maybe when I installed the turbo I didn't snug them as much as I could have. Either way, those are out, and this should itself, be careful with it because it is a bunch of vacuum lines. It should pop up like that, and we will just move that out of the way for now because we don't need to remove it, but we don't want it to be in the way while we're working in here. So for the next step, what we're gonna do is remove this airbox from the accordion here. I keep calling it that, it's just a little charge pipe. It's a 7mm, I thought it was gonna be 8, I was wrong. It's a 7, so I'll loosen this up. That should be loose enough to pull off, hopefully. There's that. And now that we have this out and available, I can grab my trusty flathead and disconnect this wire here. From our airflow sensor. So once the clip is out, you can just remove the whole airbox altogether, and then we're going to work on removing the rest of this here. It's once again another 7mm to the inlet of the turbo. And we might have to loosen up this to get enough play. Yeah, I think we will because it sits just inside that. So what size are you going to be? It's going to be a T socket. Let's take a wild guess with a T40. A little bigger, probably T45. Hopefully. Yep, T45. So we'll have to loosen that up a little bit. Hopefully we shouldn't have to remove this, but if we do, we do. Oh well. Let me go ahead and try that out. So instead of being like a regular guy and just removing these, I'm gonna be lazy and take my T45, put it in there, grab it with this, and loosen it like that. So there's a little trick for you. So now once we have this loosened up just enough, we can loosen up this guy here on the compressor side and start prying off this inlet. So once you get that coupler released all the way, it'll pop off and it'll look like this. Mine's nice and clean, not a lot of oil going through it, which is really good. Hose looks pretty clean. So that comes off, and then what we're gonna actually be working on finally is this plate here. This plate is where our blow-off valve is gonna sit. And this is a 5mm Allen. So we gotta pop that off and install the Weistec ASV. So with the 5mm socket, the Allen socket, we can start loosening up these bolts. We do want to keep these bolts. Do not lose them, do not throw them away. They go through the ASV afterwards. We're gonna reinstall these bolts. So get them loose, take them out by hand, don't drop them, don't lose them, you're gonna need them. So once you loosen up all those bolts, your little blocking plate will come off. It looks just like that, it's very simple. Make sure it looks clean on the seating surface and on this inner O-ring, which came off of mine. That's supposed to sit in there. You definitely don't want to run 2 of those, that would be bad. So make sure this is all clean because your new O-rings are going to sit on them. So just give it a good wipe down. Looks clean to me, clean from my house. And we're gonna replace this blocking plate with our Weistec ASV. So this only goes in one way, which is gonna be, you'll have to see how it fits on yours, but I imagine they would all go this way. And we're gonna lube up these O-rings here with a little bit of silicone O-ring grease I actually have from paintball guns. What it does is swell the O-ring just a tiny bit to increase the seal. So you don't need to overkill it, but you definitely don't want to go in dry. So we'll put that on there, rub it around. And then we're going to wipe off any excess afterwards with some paper towel, just because we try to keep it clean on Spec Network, you know? You guys know me. I'm going to have torque specs for this video. Okay, so we'll rub that around, clean up some excess, and we'll get ready to install it. So with the O-rings on the blow-off valve greased up a little bit, we put blue Loctite on the old bolts that came out. And we're going to thread those through there. And this part does have a torque spec. They want 13 foot-pounds. So I have a inch-pound torque wrench that's good for up to 200 inch-pounds, where 156 is what we'll need to get to. So once I get all these started. So we have a 5mm on a torque wrench that is set to 90 inch-pounds right now. We need to go to 156, but I'm going to try to work it in evenly because apparently blow-off valves on this motor tend to leak. So we're going to work it in slowly but surely and bring ourselves up to that 13 foot-pound mark. So there's 90 inch on that one. Not much room to work in here. There's another one. Let's see if we can't do it better from this way. Yeah, there's a way better angle for it. There's another 90 incher. So we'll adjust that up. Let's say we go to 130. So we're doing a little torque sequence here just because I like to be safe and I don't want any leaks. There's 130. So we're looking at almost 11 foot-pounds. And then the last one's going to be for 13. Okay, so that's just about 11 foot-pounds. And to bring it up to 156, we'll put us at 13. So there's 156. There's 156. 156. 156. So that is torqued. I'll double check the top again just to be sure. Yeah, it's good. And then this little happy guy can turn whichever direction, which I'm probably going to have it facing down here because we need to run the hose that connects to this back up through here over our intercooler and to our vacuum line, which we're about to get into here. Alright, so here we have our 1/2 inch vacuum hose to tee off for our blow-off valve and the boost gauge, which is coming soon. And right here, this vacuum line that connects to the back of the crankcase. If I'm grabbing the right one, let me double check before I tell you guys the wrong information. This gets pinched, pulled out, and then attached on the back side of this. And then you can hose clamp it to where it originally was. Okay, so with the hose clamp provided to you by Weistec, or if you just have your own laying around and you're like, whatever, I'll use it, we're going to put the hose clamp attached to our 1/2 inch vacuum tee and also the other end that goes back to the crankcase. And give her a little spit, and then we're going to jam her on there. Like that. Might need to finagle a little bit. I personally need to adjust this hose clamp's position. So I'm going to put that over the top and up towards the front more. So once it's on, it's easy to tighten. Need that light. Okay. goes right over that and tucks in nice and smooth. We'll pull the hose clamp a little closer to the front so it locks in good. Then all we have to do is tighten that down and then run this bad boy to the back of it. I might actually need to trim this a little bit. Seems like it might be too long. Yeah, I think I am going to trim it. So I had to trim this hose down just a tiny bit, like not even an inch, just under, just to make sure that I have clearance for the backside. I did hear that it's helpful to attach these two together before you put this on, but yeah, I think I'll try that. We'll see how that goes. Alright, so it was easier to connect the original hose to the 1/2 inch T before putting it on to this pipe here, but now all we gotta do is turn it the right way, slide it over, if I can get a little more push, and that should be it. And then we can tighten that down and plumb all our lines over to this, and it should be rolling. So now with that installed, we can run the macro line directly behind our turbo to intercooler coupling up through here, just behind our water to air intercooler reservoir, underneath this line here, and plugged in to the macro line that it came with. And in my special little setup back here, this barb is going to go to a boost gauge. But now that this is complete, we can start reassembling the intake portion and start worrying about how we're going to set up this boost gauge and run it through the engine, to the firewall, into the vents. Alright, so we ran into an issue with the vent pod not fitting correctly. So as you can see, we have that dangling out for now until the 3D printer seller guy gets back to me, either sending me the new vent pod or something. But we did wire everything up. We did hook up everything to the pressure sensor and to the ASV. So those are run through here fairly neatly. It's a little bit of a mess right now because the fuse box is off. We found a switched fuse for the headlamp here that we tapped into. Ran that down inside. And then we also got our ground here, which is, you know, not disgustingly wired, but it could be better. And we had to start putting back the intake, and then putting on the air box, and then the ECU, and buttoning up the rest of it, and then see if everything works. And hopefully it doesn't catch on fire, because that would be terrible. So yeah. Alright, so after a long day, we got it buttoned back up, everything's on, battery cover's back on. This is where we decided to run our boost gauge sensor to, just zip tied to the battery box, so it's not going to be too hot next to the intercooler. It's going to vibrate less because I put a little piece of rubber 3M weatherproofing strip back there just to give it a little foam. And then all of our wires are tucked away neatly, not too neatly, but you know, that's pretty good, into the fuse box on the side near the ground. And this is really it. This is all that we added, this little corner here. So very clutter free, aside from our macro line to the wastegate, and then our boost sensor to the same T-fitting back there. So it all runs pretty nice. It's zip tied in place pretty well. Everything looks pretty happy where it is. So this is not getting squished by anything, right? No, that looks good. So yeah, the next thing to do is to go out, make sure everything turns on when it's supposed to, reach boost, blow off valve,